Philip Turle joining me on the set, France 24's foreign editor. Hello to you, Philip. We heard Blinken discuss the ramifications of this war both in Ukraine and Russia. We also heard the global implications. What were your major takeaways?
Well, he listed 8 points which he said were the main points underlining why the war in Ukraine had been a failure for Vladimir Putin. I'll just give you a few of them. First one saying Russia was militarily, diplomatically, and geopolitically worse off since the start of the war last year. It had led to a rapprochement between the United States and the European Union. Europe had moved away from Russian energy. 37% was given before, less than half of that now. Putin had spent 2 decades rebuilding the military and also even like trying to crack a joke saying it was seen as second in the world, and now the military is seen as second only in Ukraine. He had failed to become a global economic power. The valued partnership with China was looking more like a one-sided partnership. Russia was more isolated on the world stage, with 140 nations condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine. There was diminished Russian influence on every continent. And the worst point of it all, according to Antony Blinken, was that his idea, Vladimir Putin's idea, to erase the actual image and existence of Ukraine had strengthened the determination of that country to become even more resolved to become independent and to keep its freedom. So quite a negative or very negative look at all the way that Russia has failed in its war in Ukraine. Then a few proposals that the US is not the enemy of Russia, it's not the enemy of the Russian people, speaking more to the Russian people and, of course, to the Russian leadership. And we will help Ukraine rebuild when the time comes. And there is no way that we can accept a ceasefire, because if we accept a ceasefire, that means that we're going to hand over 1/5 of the land which is occupied in Ukraine to Russia, and that will give Vladimir Putin the excuse to launch another attack either in Ukraine or in another country, because he will know that he has won so far what he is seeking to achieve. So determination on the fact of the United States that this is going to continue, even if there is a change of government next year, even if the Republicans get back into power. Antony Blinken saying that the US support for Ukraine will continue until this war is over.
Yeah, there's a couple moments in Blinken's speech where he referred to the American policy of trying to support Ukraine, punish Russia, and strengthen NATO. At one point, we heard Blinken refer to Ukraine's ambitions to join NATO, saying Russia will not have a say in it. That will be up to the NATO members to choose. We heard Volodymyr Zelensky saying Ukraine is ready to join NATO, the military alliance, so perhaps not as warm to the idea?
I think that the general feeling is that Ukraine will become a NATO member, just like there is a general feeling that Ukraine will become a member of the European Union. The big question is, when is that going to happen? Yesterday, the question was posed to the EU, to Emmanuel Macron, about when Moldova, where yesterday's summit was taking place of European leaders, when Moldova itself, which is right next to Ukraine, could become a member of the European Union. The Moldovan president has been speaking about 2030. All Emmanuel Macron would say was, well, you're on the right path to becoming a member of the European Union. I think what the EU and what NATO want to achieve first is an end to the war and end to the conflict. They can't take Ukraine in to become a new member of NATO while the war in Ukraine is going on. What they will offer are security guarantees. That is something that Volodymyr Zelensky has said is of extreme importance to Ukraine. Certainly, they need more guarantees, missiles to shoot down drones, to keep the skies clear over Ukraine. That I think there's no problem, though, that will be provided. But as far as actually becoming a full member of NATO or of the European Union, that is something that is still under discussion, and there's no fixed date as yet.
Yeah, Blinken making a point to display a solidarity among the Western nations for support for Ukraine, talking about the political and military aid the country has received. What hasn't been delivered yet? What is on Ukraine's president's wish list that the West hasn't yet provided?
I think the big item are these F-16 fighter jets. President Macron said we're going to train Ukrainian pilots to man those jets. The problem here is that you can't just train someone in 5 minutes. It's going to take, some say, 18 months to train a Ukrainian pilot to be able to operate one of those F-16 fighter jets. Where will the war be in 15 months or more than that? That's the first problem. Where are these fighter jets going to come from, the F-16s? Basically from the United States, but some European Union countries, notably Denmark and Poland, have already said they will supply those jets or some jets to Ukraine when the time comes. Still no date as far as that is concerned. And that is also a problem for Ukraine and a problem for the West, because what the West is fearing is that these fighter jets could be used in missions in Russian territory. And what they don't want is anything that they have supplied being used against the Russians as an aggressor against Russia. Ukraine is deemed to be the country that is being aggressed by the Russians. That is why all of these munitions and missiles and military equipment is being delivered so that it can defend itself, but it's not going to turn into the aggressor fighting against Russia, because the problem as far as that is concerned, it could drag the whole region into a conflict with Russia, including the European Union, and that is something that the United States is quite worried about. And we've seen these attacks over the last few days in Russian territory. I think there are people in the US saying, some of the leaders in the US saying, okay, I think we need to calm down a bit here because this could spiral out of control at any moment. And it certainly shouldn't be Ukraine which is attacking Russia. Ukraine should defend itself against the Russians, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and some symbolism at the top of Blinken's speech where he drew parallels between 2022 and 1939, the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union. Philip, thank you very much. Philip Turle, Foreign Editor. Time now